Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman Powered Up. Time for Elecman.
Electrifying!
Now before we start talking about his stage, I actually forgot to mention last part, the voice of Oilman. Oilman in this game is voiced by Scott Roberts, who is again another Mobile Fighter G Gundam voice actor. He voiced George Desand, the Neo France representative. I think he was also Gohan in GT, and I think he voiced a couple of Gundam characters over the years. Whereas Elecman in this game is voiced by Brendan Hunter, who I think was Hisoka in the old Hunter x Hunter series, and was Ten Shinhan at some point or another. Again, fairly known voice actors in terms of their major roles. Now, Elecman's stage is probably the most like his original in terms of gimmick and relative layout. A lot of the same general platform arrangements show up. It's also the same kind of vertical structure to it all. Compared to some of the other stages, this one feels like it hits the same beats the most, though it has some extra appearances of these helicopter things and such. They still change it a good amount, all things considered. And like I mentioned last part, there is no Elec Beam, so you don't need to worry about having to, not Elec Beam, no Magnet Beam, so you don't need to worry about looking and getting that. So theoretically, if you were insane, you could go for Elecman first. I don't know why you would do it, but you could. Though, admittedly, it's a much more viable option to go for Elecman first here than in Megaman, the original Megaman 1, just due to the changed damage balancing. He won't kill you in 3 hits anymore. It's probably closer to 5 or 6, but still. That is kind of the weird thing about Mega Man, the more I look back. The early games were a bit iffy with damage balancing. Mega Man 1 obviously has the constant 3-shot thing going on with a lot of weapons, while Mega Man 2 has, depending on the difficulty, entirely 1-shots. I'm looking at you, Metal Blades, and the fully charged heat weapon. Mega Man 3, they started to get it more together, but even then you still have stuff like what happens to Gamma and such. Though I think the Gamma thing is technically a bug with Topspin, where it does damage more than once a frame or something. Either way, Elecman's theme in this game is probably still my favorite song overall from Mega Man 1. I don't know exactly what it is about this song. Maybe it's because it's Faithfully by Journey. Despite being a series that's based in music, most of the musical references are probably Mega Man 1 in terms of like the music being similar. Obviously you have stuff like the My Michelle thing in X.3 and such, the Guns N' Roses members in X.5, that was a real bad death. But comparatively, like in terms of the actual music, Mega Man 1 has the most similarity kind of music, because you got this, which sounds very much like Faithfully by Journey. You got the stage select theme, which sounds like the intro riff to Runaway by Bon Jovi. There's a couple more in this game than most other Mega Man games. Usually there's probably at least one musical reference beyond the whole rock and roll kind of fit naming scheme for a lot of the characters, but yeah. Honestly, seeing that again, first off, this is another one of those really annoying jumps. Seeing the score balls in Mega Man 1 is always weird, because even though the score, I think, has more of a purpose in this, because at least there's potential leaderboards, it's still just weird playing a Mega Man game and having them drop more than beyond, like, the usual extra life, extra life energy, and weapon energy. It almost feels wrong every time I play Mega Man 1 because of that. Ice Slasher can also freeze things in midair, by the way, which is really, really, really useful. By the way, it's time for Elecman, who is weak to the oil slider, but we're not going to be using that.
Warning!
Well done! But you say goodbye here. I might even tell you more about me after I win.
I don't have any reason to fight you, Elecman. Come on, let's go home.
You'll never blast through my heart with that kind of attitude. It's really too bad. But I'm going to finish you at lightning speed. Energize!
I actually really like Elecman's personality, despite it being really pompous. Now, Elecman likes to shoot his Elec Beam, either by jumping or by standing. Notable, though, whenever he's doing it by standing, you still need to jump over if you're on the blocks just because of how large the hitbox is. He still does a good amount of damage, but he's a lot less spam-happy and a lot less agile than he was in the NES game. On the higher difficulties, you gain this attack where he summons a lightning bolt from the sky. It aims for you directly whenever the lightning bolt is supposed to spawn. On harder difficulties, he does it 3 times in a row and he's invulnerable during all of it. My best advice to dodge that is just start at one of the extreme walls and then just run to the one direction. When you reach the other wall, reverse at the last possible second. And that should keep you safe. It's probably one of the harder to dodge ones all the same just due to how quick it is, but it's still doable. Also, hitting him with the oil slider is really, really dumb. I recommend doing it while he's facing away from you, but even then, Powered Up has this weird issue where sometimes if you hit enemies towards one direction, they'll actually go the opposite. It happens a lot with Cutman in particular in my cases. And now we get the Thunder Beam, which still pierces enemies and will go through the 3 directions in front of you. Still really, really useful. Probably still my favorite out of the non-Firestorm weapons. And now it's time for the final Robot Master. It's time for Timeman. See what I did there?
Time's up!
Timeman is voiced by Mike Thiessen, who I think was only ever Krillin in the pre-DBZ days. And his stage is probably my least favorite out of the ones that aren't named Gutsman, just because I really hate Gutsman platforms, and really in this game they're not as bad. Just because, first off, I think it might be the longest stage out of all of them, and there's just a lot of hazards in your way. The largest one to name is probably these little clock pendulums, just because their timing varies from 1 to 1, and I have a hell of a time dodging them for some reason. And they love to put them in complicated positions like this, where if you screw up, you're probably going to die. There's also a good amount of conveyor belts in this stage, and the Megaman 8 bombs. No, actually, no, not Megaman 8. That's the Megaman 8 design, but, actually, when did those first show up? I want to say 3 or 4? 5 at the latest? I'm a failure for Megaman fan for not remembering that. Either way, moving on. If you're new to the game, I don't recommend this as a first stage. If you've played it through a few times, this is a pretty good first stage, just because you'll know how the physics work and how to time everything properly. Because Timeman himself, as we'll see, is actually the easiest boss overall, even next to Cutman, if you know what to do right. Just due to how things work there, so this could be a good first choice. He's definitely a good first choice boss, not a good first choice stage. And now we start to work the pendulums in our favor by standing on them as hammers. Notable though, they can still hurt you, I believe. I do love Clockman's theme though, and I actually forgot to mention, you might recall throughout most of the classic games I've mentioned their Mega Man and Bass bios, obviously because this game came out years after Mega Man and Bass. There is no Mega Man and Bass bio, but there is a description, sort of, for Timeman and Oilman. Timeman was built by Dr. Light to experiment with time travel, but is, as of the moment of this game, I cut there because I was trying to get that, by the way. You can't get that unless you're playing as Bomb Man, I believe. Either way, he was built by Dr. Light to mess around with time travel. However, he is incomplete, so he can only slow down time. Theoretically, he's the one that Dr. Light was still working on when the game's events went on. Whereas Oilman was built to be an infinite reserve of oil energy. Oil to be made into energy. Yeah. Oil fuel supply, infinite source. How well that works out, I don't know. In fact, how do you power an oil-creating robot? Do you use oil? Batteries? Electricity? Actually, I suppose, going off the lore for what like Proto Man's all about in 3 onwards, maybe they use some sort of nuclear core or something. Though I think Proto Man's was experimental, so maybe it's different. I forget. I know a good amount of Mega Man lore, but there's also just a good amount that's like, yeah, this is just science bullshit. When it's character driven, I really like it. When it's not, eh. Either way, time for Timeman himself. Time for Time Force. He's weak against the Elec Thunder Beam, so that could be useful, but since I have to go get him as a playable character, I don't have to do that.
Warning! Time's up! You're early for your appointment.
Huh? What appointment, Timeman?
Oh, joy. By being early, you've given us an extra 0.3 seconds.
Timeman's the only character who gets to use his quote-unquote difficulty-based attack on all 3 difficulties, where he slows down time like this. The thing is about Timeman, he never walks to the extreme left or right of the screen. If you just stay on either extreme, he'll never actually hit you with touch damage, but he can still throw his arrows at you, which could get theoretically annoying. However, whenever he fires them up high, they're slow. When they're down low, they go faster. He tries to trap you with his attacks, but ultimately comes across as very, very easy. This is what I mean by him being a good first choice Robot Master. You'd think by being the one who can control time, he could be one of the harder ones, but no, not really. And for beating him, we get his time slow ability. It's the lowest ammunitioned weapon in the game. You only get 2 shots of it. But when you use it, the screen turns purple, and the screen turns, the time slows down momentarily. It doesn't damage anything except for Gutsman, and even then it does maybe half of his health. So, yeah, that's a thing.
My! 8 robots and they all ended up like this! Dr. Light, your robots are nothing but junk!
How horrible!
You! Dr. Wily, you are a most foul man!
Feeling sorry for yourself, Dr. Light? You're full of regret, aren't you? Well then, come to my fortress, Castle Wily! I've already sent you an invitation. Don't disappoint me!
Oh, that's just funny timing, getting that like that. Anyway, that's all 8 Robot Masters collected and beaten, so now we can access the Wily Castle, but we're not going to be doing that for a few parts yet. Before we go to the Wily Castle, I want to show off all the bonus content that the game has. First off, let's play as a certain Robot Master. And you might be wondering, what happens if you go to a Robot Master's stage as the respective Robot Master? Well...
Go ahead, Hotshot.
We are playing as Fireman in his own stage because whenever you play as a Robot Master in their own stage, they get replaced with Megaman? And I figured I'd talk about playing as the other Robot Masters here in terms of what the campaign has for them. Overall, you still go through all 13 stages in the game. The intro stage, the Robot Masters, and the 4 Wily stages. However, there are some minor changes along the way. The biggest one is obviously just fighting Megaman at their own stage. However, during the boss rush stage, he still replaces you in the boss rush, but you also still end up fighting yourself when it comes to that one fight that you might recall in Wily 2 from Mega Man 1. The cutscenes don't really change that much. In fact, the most that happens is you get unique dialogue of Wily remarking, "Oh, you're too hot for me to handle, Fireman," or something along those lines. You get a unique line of light from Light when you become a hero, basically. And he'll also describe your abilities. For instance, he'll say that Fireman can use Firestorm, you can shoot forward fire, and you still have a little shield around you. You're immune to fire, however, say you go to Iceman stage or Wily 2 in this game, and you touch water, the fire on your head will go out and you'll lose the Fire Wave ability. You'll still have the shield, I believe, but you can't shoot forward, and it'll get rejuvenated if you touch fire. So that's fairly notable. The other things that change is mostly just dialogue scenes between characters at the end of every given stage. One of my favorite ones happens if you fight the boss of Wily 1 as Cutman, where extraordinarily confused, he'll basically just start mimicking that boss, going, "Boo-boo?" There's some real funny dialogue here, and ultimately I think that being able to play as the 8 Robot Masters is really cool. Albeit, if you try to marathon it, very, very, very draining. I'll talk about what I mean by that during the credits, because as for right now, it's time for us to fight Mega Man.
Warning!
On the scene. You should come with me, Fireman. Dr. Wily really knows how to cook the bad guys.
You sure you have a sense of justice? Mine burns strong in my heart.
What a hothead.
Mega Man, or as a lot of people tend to call him Dark Mega, based off the name from Battle Network, has a couple different patterns depending on your difficulty. He usually just runs back and forth, sliding and doing pellet shots. I believe that's his easy mode pattern. On normal mode, he gets his special attack where he does a one-shot and then a charge shot combo. bit weird that he can do that, but we can't when we play as Mega Man, but oh well. On hard mode, not only does he not get stunned, but I think he uses the charge shot a bit more willy-nilly, and I think he can just lead right into it from nothing. Overall, a very easy boss fight with most characters aside from maybe Oil Man, but still a notable fight all the same. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're going to be taking a look at some more of the extra stuff, namely the construction mode and challenge mode, as well as seeing some other playable characters. See you guys then.